When was the last time you faced a challenge that truly scared you? In a world that encourages comfort and convenience, the ancient Stoics had a radical idea. Courage isn't about feeling no fear, it's about acting despite it. I'm your host, and today we're exploring the Stoic virtue of courage through 15 powerful rules that have guided emperors, prisoners of war, and everyday people through their darkest hours. These aren't just historical curiosities. They're practical tools that can transform how you face challenges, from public speaking to making life-changing decisions. Let's begin. Before we dive into the rules, let's understand what Stoic courage actually is. For the Stoics, courage wasn't about battlefield heroics or daredevil stunts. It was a quiet, consistent strength of character, choosing to do what's right, even when it's difficult. Epictetus, a former slave turned philosopher, taught that courage comes from clarity about what we can and cannot control. When we focus only on what we can control, our judgments, actions, and intentions, fear loses its grip. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, practiced this daily while leading Rome through wars and plagues. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Now let's explore how to build this strength with 15 Stoic rules for courage. Rule 1. Practice the premeditation of evils. The first rule sounds counterintuitive. Regularly visualize worst-case scenarios. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. By mentally rehearsing difficult situations, you inoculate yourself against the paralysis of fear when they actually happen. Try this. Before your next challenging event, a job interview, difficult conversation, or public speech, spend 5 minutes visualizing what could go wrong. Not to induce anxiety, but to prepare your mind. What if I forget my words? What if they reject my proposal? Then ask yourself, could I survive this? What would I do next? This mental rehearsal builds resilience before you need it. Rule 2. Start small. Build gradually. Courage, like a muscle, grows with exercise. But you wouldn't start with a 300-pound deadlift on day 1. Musonius Rufus, the teacher of Epictetus, advised starting with small discomforts. Cold showers, fasting for a day, or speaking up in a meeting when you'd rather stay silent. These courage workouts build your capacity to endure discomfort. Over time, what once seemed impossible becomes merely challenging, and what was challenging becomes routine. Remember, the Stoics weren't interested in performative toughness. These practices serve a purpose: to free you from the tyranny of comfort so you can do what matters. Rule 3. Distinguish between fear and caution. The Stoics made a crucial distinction that many of us miss: the difference between fear and caution. Fear is an emotional reaction that clouds judgment and often paralyzes action. Caution is a rational assessment of risk that informs wise action. Seneca wrote, "The wise man is neither raised up by prosperity nor cast down by adversity, for he has always endeavored to rely predominantly on himself and to derive all delight from himself." When facing a challenge, ask yourself, am I responding with rational caution or irrational fear? Caution says, this path has risks I should prepare for. Fear says, this is too scary, I can't handle it. Courage isn't the absence of caution, it's the mastery of fear. Rule 4. Focus on service, not self. Here's a powerful Stoic insight. Self-focus amplifies fear, service diminishes it. When all your attention is on how you feel, how you'll perform, or what others think of you, fear grows. But when you focus on how you can serve others, something shifts. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, what is this, fundamentally? What is its nature and substance, its reason for being? Before your next challenge, ask, how can this action serve others? What good might come from this beyond my comfort? A doctor doesn't flee the sick, though there's risk of illness. A firefighter doesn't avoid the flames, though there's danger. A parent doesn't abandon a child, though there's sacrifice. Service provides context for courage. Rule 5. Reframe failure as feedback. The Stoics had a revolutionary perspective on failure. They saw it not as final judgment, but as valuable information. Epictetus taught, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." This means you control your effort and intentions. You don't control the outcome. Every result provides data for improvement. What if you viewed failures as experiments? Each one gives you information about what works and what doesn't. This reframing removes the existential weight from potential failure. You're not risking your identity or worth. You're gathering data to improve. Rule 9, study the courageous. The Stoics were practical psychologists. They knew that humans learn through example, so they kept a mental catalog of courageous individuals to draw inspiration from. Seneca wrote, "Choose someone whose way of life, as well as words, and whose very face as mirroring the character that lies behind it, have won your approval. Be always pointing him out to yourself, either as your guardian or as your model." Who are your courage role models? They might be historical figures who overcame adversity, literary characters who embody courage, people in your life who face challenges with dignity. Study them. Imagine what they would do in your situation. This isn't about hero worship. It's about learning from lived examples. Rule 10, embrace the obstacle. Marcus Aurelius gave us one of Stoicism's most powerful insights. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This means that obstacles aren't just challenges to overcome, they're often the path itself. Consider how many defining human achievements came directly from confronting obstacles. Vaccines emerged from studying disease. Democracy developed to address tyranny. Personal growth comes from overcoming adversity. Instead of asking, "Why is this in my way?" try asking, "What can this obstacle teach me? How might it be the way forward?" This perspective transforms barriers from reasons to retreat into invitations to advance. Rule 11, practice speaking truth. The Stoics placed enormous value on truth speaking, especially when difficult. Epictetus taught that lying creates a divided self. Part of you knows the truth, while another part speaks falsely. This division weakens your character and courage. Speaking truth when it's difficult, giving honest feedback, admitting mistakes, or standing for principles, is a direct practice of courage. Start with small truths. When someone asks your opinion on something minor, practice giving your honest, though tactful assessment, rather than the expected answer. Build gradually toward more consequential truths, always balancing honesty with kindness. Rule 12, develop indifference to criticism. The Stoics worked to become indifferent to both praise and criticism, not because they didn't value feedback, but because they recognized that public opinion is fickle and often misinformed. Epictetus asked, "If someone handed over your body to any person who happened to come along, you would be angry. But are you not ashamed that you hand over your own faculty of judgment to whoever happens along, so that if they criticize you, it is disturbed and confused?" This doesn't mean ignoring all feedback. It means valuing the assessment of the wise over the opinions of the crowd, distinguishing between substance and noise, finding worth in yourself rather than others' validation. When you're less concerned with criticism, courage comes more naturally. Rule 13, separate discomfort from harm. The Stoics made a crucial distinction between discomfort and harm. Discomfort is an unpleasant sensation: fear, pain, awkwardness, embarrassment. Harm is actual damage to your character or your ability to make moral choices. Most of what we fear is merely discomfort, not harm. Epictetus, who had been enslaved and physically disabled, maintained that it is not death or pain that is to be feared, but the fear of pain or death. The next time fear arises, ask yourself, what am I actually afraid of? Is it harmful or merely uncomfortable? Recognizing that most fears involve discomfort rather than harm makes them easier to face. Rule 14, take the view from above. The Stoics regularly practiced what's called the view from above, mentally zooming out to see their concerns from a cosmic perspective. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look at the immensity of time behind thee, and to the time which is before thee, another boundless space." In this infinity, then what is the difference between him who lives 3 days and him who lives 3 generations? This practice doesn't dismiss your challenges, but places them in context. When fear arises, try visualizing your concern from a month in the future, your city from airplane height, Earth from space, your lifetime in the span of history. This cosmic perspective often reveals that what seems overwhelming in the moment is manageable in context. Rule 15, act despite fear. Our final and most important rule. Courage isn't about feeling no fear, it's about acting despite fear. The Stoics understood that waiting to feel brave before acting brave creates a psychological trap. Instead, they taught that right action comes first, the feeling of courage follows. As Epictetus put it, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. This means, acknowledge your fear without judgment, identify the right action regardless of fear, act as if you were already courageous. Watch how your feelings follow your actions. Rule 6. Cultivate philosophical detachment. The Stoics practiced what might be called detached engagement, fully committed to right action while detached from specific outcomes. This isn't apathy. It's recognizing that while you should care deeply about doing your duty, you cannot fully control how things turn out. Epictetus put it simply, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. This detachment is liberating. When your worth isn't tied to specific outcomes, you can act more boldly. Try asking, what's my duty in this situation, regardless of how it turns out? Then commit fully to that duty, while accepting that results may vary. Rule 7. Develop a relationship with discomfort. Most people structure their lives to avoid discomfort. The Stoics did the opposite. Seneca, despite being one of Rome's wealthiest men, regularly practiced voluntary discomfort. Dressing simply, eating plain food, and even experiencing poverty conditions temporarily. Why? Because comfort addiction creates fragility. The more you need comfort to function, the less resilient you become. Instead of avoiding discomfort, try befriending it. Take cold showers. Fast occasionally, sleep on a hard surface. Walk in inclement weather. The goal isn't suffering for its own sake. It's building a relationship with discomfort so it no longer controls your choices. Rule 8. Remember your mortality. Memento mori, remember that you will die, was a central Stoic practice. This isn't morbid, it's clarifying. When you acknowledge life's finite nature, priorities sharpen, and many fears shrink in significance. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." Ask yourself, if I knew I had a year to live, would this fear still control me? Would I still postpone this important action? Our mortality isn't something to ignore. It's the background against which courage becomes not just possible, but urgent.